Welcome to That's So Rad podcast. I'm your host, Travis Vonksness. This is a podcast about people, their passions, their life experiences, and their stories. As writer Frederick Buechner once said, the story of any one of us is in some measure the story of us all. All of us can learn something valuable from someone else's life and their stories. Join us for another conversation where we learn, laugh, and leave, seeing our own life in new ways. What's more rad than that? Welcome to another episode of That's So Rad podcast. I'm your host, Travis, joined today by my newly acquired trucker stash, which is much more than a prop. It is a way of life. And I needed this stash for this episode because I needed to step up my rad game. I'm really stoked about this episode because it's something I've wanted to do for quite a while, which is to discuss the etymology or the study of the origin of words, and in this case, the origin of the word rad, by an author and essayist who wrote an incredible essay on the word rad. It's super fun, smart, nostalgia, everything, all of the above. So excited about that, and more on that in just a second. Realizing, though, that wearing a trucker stash is like wearing a neon sign that says, I have a 1987 Cutlass Supreme in the yard that just needs a carburetor. I've also realized that having a trucker stash adds about 50 horsepower automatically to any vehicle you're in. You also have responsibility. So look out if you're in the plumbing aisle at Lowe's, you're going to get lots of questions by other customers needing assistance. But back to this episode today. It's going to be a short one. But as I said, the author, Aaron Gilbreath, is an award-winning essayist and writer. I think around 2010, maybe, something like that. It's a bit dated in time now. He wrote an essay called A Brief History of the Word Rad, which when I was putting together this podcast and kind of come up with a name quite a while back, I remember just, kind of reading about like, where is rad in the vernacular? I know now, so fast forward to 2026, the last at least couple of years, I feel like the 90s have been back in. And so like 90s dress, all that. And so rad seems to be a word that's still hanging around. It's got so much nostalgia for me. And then I think just doing some digging on that word or whatever, I came across this article by Aaron, and then the name just hooked me in. A Brief History of the Word Rad. I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I can't remember it was on a major website. And what happened was I had saved it, and I think I was going to print it at one point. So like months later after it saved it, I went back to find it, and it literally, that article said it was taken down by the author. And I was like, oh crap. How am I ever going to find this again? And so doing some more digging, found Aaron as the author. And I think I literally found then his email, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I need your essay back in my life. And so I sent this email to Aaron and just asked, hey, it looks like this was just taken off the website. Is there any way I can get a copy? And I mean, really quickly he responded, like thanking me for, the kind words about the essay. And then, and he sent me I think his original Word doc, from the essay. So kind of cool. We've corresponded just a little through email, and, that was kind of cool to also have that personal touch. So, when Aaron is writing this back in, again, I'm guessing maybe 2010 or somewhere in there, the 80s actually were then kind of maybe making more of an appearance at that time. And then, we know how it cycles through. So he's kind of referencing that, I think, in what he's seeing in that era of the 2010s, in that. So anyway, what I'm going to do in this episode is just simply read his essay. And so if you're listening to this, you grew up, in the 70s, 80s, even 90s, I think this is going to be a fun listen, just because, yeah, it takes us back to our childhood. And it's also really fascinating as a cultural commentary and the sort of an anthropological look at how words are used, what makes certain words that are cool or hip or whatever die, why some survive, others not. So what else is there to say? I think that's it. Let's just jump in, and I'm going to read Aaron's essay. So here we go. Hearing teenagers in purple flannels call their soy mochas rad perfectly illustrates the mechanisms behind the perpetually regurgitating cow stomach that is American pop culture. Not that that's a bad thing. Nothing new under the sun, and all yields innovative hybrids. But the feedback loop of fashion really strikes a nerve when what was new in your youth becomes another generation's vintage clothing. One of the dominant aesthetics of the last few years has been the 1980s. Ray-Bans, short shorts, fanny packs, wrist warmers. Forget the old friends don't let friends wear neon maxim. The image of Pretty in Pink, James Spader, and his antagonistically feathered hair seems like the most fitting mascot of our time. A time where we find 80s slang unwittingly coloring our conversations. Dude, awesome, bummed, stoked, shred, balls out, sweet, this rules, and of course the crown jewel, rad. This band is rad. That burrito is rad. You're coming over tonight, rad. On the suggestion of a childhood friend who was also struggling with the difficult fact of our combined 70 years, I rented Thrashin. It's a sports exploitation flick that came out in 1986 when we were 9 years old. And it features all the stomach-churning, Pepto-tinted vibrancy of the era, as well as a circle jerk song. In the mid to late 80s, Hollywood spent much time and money trying to capitalize on the then underground sports and their associated subcultures: surfing, North Shore, breakdancing, break-in, BMX biking, rad, and skateboarding, Thrashin, Gleaming the Cube. Along with the synthesizer soundtracks and presence of non-ironic mustaches, what unites most of these films is their reliance on the same dramatic formulation. Small-town kid and or outsider competes in a high-stakes competition against nationally known surfers, skaters, BMXers in the hopes of not only winning the prize money, but winning respect and usually the heart of a girl. As Powell Peralta era skaters ourselves, Thrashin repelled my friends and me. A skate gang called the Daggers, who wear dangly dagger earrings and paint their faces when they joust with their enemies in a drainage ditch. In the parlance of our childhood, it was retarded. Listening to lines such as, well, what do you thrash? What do you got? Felt as embarrassing as having your mom stand outside a skate shop dressing room, checking to see how your pants fit. In a narrative sense, the movie was bad. Not good bad, like retro 70s pimp and leather, give me some skin bad, but awful bad. Cornpone in certain regional southern dialects, or schmaltzy in the Yiddish of my New York-born Jewish grandmother. Say it and wave your hand dismissively. Worse yet, while rendering an innovative subversive subculture as clownish stereotypes decked in sleeveless jean jackets and plaid shorts, Hollywood even failed to capture skateboarding's most obvious linguistic feature, the word rad. Not one person says it in the movie at all. During the entire hour and 32 minutes, the characters utter a litany of dated, often pungently cheddary terms that, unlike rad, have never come back into fashion. Gnarly, studly, styling, tasty skate betties, acid rock, you're dead meat. I'm going to cream that mother. But no rad. This registers as a particularly epic oversight. Not because the characters in that competing skateboard movie, Gleaming the Cube, say rad in the first 5 minutes. That was so rad, a kid tells Tony Hawk while skating an empty pool. And not because the characters in that maudlin 1986 BMX movie Rad say rad and dude and awesome constantly. It's tragic because skaters in the Venice Beach, Santa Monica area, the very area in which Thrashin is set, seem to have coined the term. Although I can't say for sure, the famous Z-Boys of Dogtown appeared to have invented rad in the second half of the 70s. This was back in the days of sidewalk surfing, when shoeless shredders with bowl cuts balanced on the pointed tips of their skateboards to hang 10, a time when disco still shook the bubble booties of many a slick-haired New Yorker. The Z-Boys were surfer kids. Out of habit, they injected their aggressive surfing moves into the then softcore ballerina sport of skating and, in the process, birthed modern vert skating and the sport as we know it today. They were inventive. To them, style was everything. Clothes and language and tricks mattered. No surprise then that it was they who sawed the tail end off the word radical as if it were some constrictively low roof on an old Econoline van and fashioned something new. Only an old dude with parental leanings would have to tell you that rad is slang for cool. An adjective derived from the word radical, rad also means good, great, awesome, okay. It's an expression of extreme enthusiasm which captures the joy you feel about something completely overwhelmingly magnificent. A sunny day, a woman in a skirt, finding a $20 bill on the ground. Rad is a smile you can say. It's also the highest form of flattery, a stronger qualifier than cool, more super in its superlativeness than awesome. There are no gradations of rad, no rad or raddest. Yes, people say raddest, but the term is redundant, used more to fit a sentence's tense or texture than to imply a qualitative hierarchy. As with pregnancy, rad is an absolute. Something is either rad or it's not. You're either pregnant or not. There's no kind of pregnant, all of which should elicit a resounding duh. Okay, but how about this? According to Merriam-Webster, radical is Middle English derived from the Latin radicalis, meaning of roots, and radix, meaning root. As an adjective, it first appeared in the 14th century, after which it came to mean different, drastic, extreme, counter-tradition, a break from the ordinary, a radical change in company policy. In early skateboarding vernacular, radical usually referenced tricks or someone's bravura, killer performance, a radical air, a radical session, or meant crazy, wild, edgy, on-plan, a precursor to modern skateboarding's sick. In retrospect, the connotation might be extended to these pioneering skaters' lifestyles in general, not having long hair, which most anyone can grow, but the Z-Boys' fundamental shift away from accepted skateboarding tradition. As a noun, a radical is someone who stands in extreme opposition to accepted norms and customs, a person of revolutionary ideas, or one who calls for drastic social, political, or economic reforms. This was before Mountain Dew commercials made the term extreme as unpalatable as a frat party. So Z-Boys like Tony Alva and Stacy Peralta weren't only radical sportsmen, they were revolutionaries because they essentially said, no more hanging 10, fools. It's time to tear up some pools. And their new style turned a stick with wheels into a distinctive breed of clothing and speech that swept through global culture and changed human history. They did the same to words. Viewed through an anthropological lens, it's no surprise that rad would have originated in Southern California, the land of free thinking and invention that gave the world tons of great things. Rad shit like vans, surf, instrumental music, Korean tacos, and the Minutemen. I mean, could rad have originated in the Midwest? That flat kingdom of soybeans and corn? All Northern California seemed able to deliver was the term hella, a contraction of hell of, used in the place of very. That VW is hella fine, which arose in San Francisco's Hunters Point neighborhood in the late 70s, spread through Berkeley and the deadhead ranks like fleas, and still lingers in crunchy places like Eugene, Oregon, and Flagstaff, Arizona. It's a term I still begrudge Northern California for, but if rad is a kind of lyric chopper bicycle, one can't help but try to picture the exact moment the welder hit the frame. I picture kids being lazy. Summer in LA, it's hot, everything gets sluggish. When you're stoned and full of burritos or just fried from skating for miles through that toxic bus exhaust heat, you look for shortcuts, cutting through alleys to bypass a block, cutting across lawns to bypass 45-degree angle sidewalks, jaywalking to get a Slurpee. Shortening words seems an obvious extension. Laconic lips inadvertently turn radical into rad the same way they recently truncated totally into totes. Consider the convenient smart car portability of totes versus the many sanctioned centipede of totality. Or abbreviating whatever as whatevs. Such sonic ingenuity is proof that stiffs like Mr. Hand and Fast Times at Ridgemont High are wrong for thinking that stone bums like Spicoli never contribute to anything to society. How about the phrase tasty waves, Mr. Hand? It's also nothing new. You can hear whatevs earlier incarnation in the 1987 movie North Shore, when the bad boy native surf gang spots clueless mainlanders in their lineup. One of them tells Vince, their leader, "Plays a hole, surfers, but we'll blow them away, brah." Vince growls, "Whatevers." So convenience of style, the twin mothers of invention, but also whether the Z-Boys knew it or not, abbreviating radical was a way of claiming a bit of the dominant culture as their own. like spray painting drunken geometries on the side of the station wagon your mom gave you when you turned 16, removing the ickle, remove the whole word from the standard lexicon, a radical move in the literal sense, tearing away its Latin roots so they could refurbish this bit of 14th century Middle English into a full-on American original, as wholly ours as jazz and blues and hamburgers. As with all popular inventions, though, the words got away from them. When the 70s turned into the 80s, rad entered what would be its golden age. Everyone said it, every teased hair mall rat from Reseda to North Carolina, thanks to the vehicle of its popularity. Valley Girl Talk, aka Valspeak. Valspeak emerged in the late 70s in California's San Fernando Valley. Built from bits of surf and skater slang from nearby beaches and fused together with some sort of pink chewing gum, this bubbly pistache was characterized by its rising terminal intonation, which, like so many Canadians I know, made declarative sentences sound like questions. And its overuse of terms like totally, so, whatever, radical, duh, as if. Frank Zappa wrote a song about Valspeak, after which the nearby Hollywood media machine pushed the local Valley phenom into national visibility. There was a 1983 movie, Valley Girl, the TV show Square Pegs, then later Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Clueless, recently The Hills, and whatever. The familiar feedback loop of culture. So over at BTW. Despite its initial underground origins and the subsequent Valspeak craze, it was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon that gave Radical its final push through the blood-brain barrier of popular consciousness and into wider use. Radical screamed Donatello, Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Raphael in seemingly every episode during the late 80s and early 90s. Suddenly the kids in your high school marching band were saying Radical. Your little cousin with the big rim glasses was saying it. The boy down the street who always had snot kicking his nostrils was saying it. People who'd never touched a skateboard, let alone heard the Repo Man soundtrack, which was probably part of the reason nobody wanted to touch the word for so many years. It was tainted, but America's a short memory. Time makes old leprosies appear fresh again. Every generation goes through this, with each decade defined as much by its music and the cut of its pants, bell-bottom versus baggy versus super skinny, as by its slang. The 20s were the era of the bee's knees and the cat's meow. The late 40s were so reet. The bebop 50s had its beat cool cats and daddy-o and its square beaver cleaver, golly gee swell. The groovy 60s were far out. The disco 70s were dynamite, out of sight. People were bugging out in the early 90s hip-hop, had bling in the late 90s, and were sweet in the decade's more frat boyish enclaves. Rad came to prominence during the Valspeak era along other hokey, surfy terms such as bogus and gnarly, yet somehow rad outlasted them all. It's always baffling how certain words stay relevant while others die out. The dueling processes of cementation and erosion seem arbitrary. I don't hear people saying hot dog or tubular. Then again, I never heard anyone in the late 80s say, I'm going to cream that mother, the way the Daggers leader and Thrashin did. Yet Right On never died out. Killer never did either. Or maybe I've been saying both for so long that I failed to notice how dated I sounded. Theoretically, golly gee and far out could come back into fashion, but more likely these sayings like MC Hammer Pants and kids in play haircuts will forever remain artifacts of their respective times. Sunk in the murky bottom of that cultural La Brea tar pit where all the VHS tapes, jive turkeys, and giant old school mobile phones go, props for period pieces, too dated for even future scenesters to touch. After all, before there was the pejorative hipster, there was the pejorative scenester. While As If sleeps on memory's casting couch, waiting to see if irony will ever call it back to duty, people say rad a lot. Maybe because its appeal mirrors this definition, as a word that means cooler than cool, it will likely always remain the epitome of cool. When wise men say everything comes in cycles, I have to keep my eyes from rolling. That canned phrase is so vague as to be almost meaningless, and it reeks of such woo-woo new aginess that I can almost smell the BO at Burning Man. But as a saying, it too has never fallen out of favor, no matter how much I wish it would and wish it would take everything happens for a reason with it. Also, I have to admit, in some sense, the line is true. What is old often becomes new again. Trendy, yes, but not in an annoying way. Some things are evergreen, like Sun's House, 1941's Depot Blues, which will never sound anything but stirring and heartfelt, and Link Wray's driving instrumentals such as Ace of Spades and A Thick Strawberry Milkshake, shared with your soulmate at a mom and pop roadside stand in the coming summer heat. Maybe the Chiffons' He's So Fine sounds of an era, as they say. Now that's a great phrase, but age has reduced none of its melody's potency. My mom was a kid when that song ruled the airwaves in the spring of 1963. I was born in 75. Yet, when it plays, we both sing along and sway our heads. You have to. The song is contagious. Maybe all great cultural artifacts work the same way. If it's good, it's good. Built of marble, never to erode. Like the word cool, like Bob Dylan's visage in most any early black and white photo where he's smoking a cigarette with his sunglasses on, like a blue and white 1956 Ford Fairlane, not like the movies Thrashin or North Shore or Rad, which will age more like wet wooden wine barrels than the sturdy vintages they contained, unraveling rather than improving, and endure as entertainment for future drunken teenagers going through an ironic phase, as well as commentary on the Hollywood mindset at a certain point of history. Definitely not like the word rad. Frankly, the word really never went away. Like headbangers who love Iron Maiden and cockroaches who will survive nuclear apocalypse, rad was always there, lurking in the margins while we all did something else. Like watching the rise and fall of nu metal and Creed and American Idol winners. Will hair metal ever come back? Hopefully not. I spent enough of my childhood surrounded by dirt heads and torn, acid-washed jeans and those brown, tasseled moccasins to repeat that nightmare. But as long as there is air to breathe, somewhere a Hesher will play air guitar to rat, just as other slang words will lay in wait after their generation has finished playing with them, letting the dust of decades settle upon their dormant husks before the new kids on the block rise from their vintage refurbished playpen to pick them up again and naively, like all previous generations, think they invented what was never really new to begin with. Because as Carl Sagan said, you have to know the past to understand the present. And Confucius before him, study the past if you would divine the future, which resembles in content but not origin the famous line in Ecclesiastes 1:9, there's no new thing under the sun, which bears witness in today's contemporary garage bands who ape the headcoats who ape the Kinks, just as the Kinks aped rhythm and blues. For Homo erectus is descended from the apes, and so too will future 30-somethings with receding hairlines spend way too much time dissecting the films and vernacular of their now retro youth, while begrudging the cruel nature of time and, in turn, reveal their own uncoolness, not a word, by completely draining the cachet from an actual word by thinking too much about it, which is somehow antithetical to cool, even though to appear cool, you have to think a lot about what you're going to wear and what you're going to say and how to style your hair. For as the dude in The Big Lebowski said, yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man. So does Stanley Stony Brown, Pauly Shore, and Encino Man say, don't harsh my mellow. A phrase I quote here for the first and last time and will never utter again. And that, my friends, is Aaron Gilbreath in his rad essay. I'll have a link to Aaron's website and some of his other work. Thanks for hanging out today. Again, if you like and enjoy the podcast, please follow it, like and subscribe, and share with friends. Hope you're having a rad day. Hope you enjoyed the episode today. Check out the show notes for any links or resources shared in the episode. If you enjoy the podcast, it would be really appreciated if you'd subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share it with friends. May we all remember these words from writer Mary Oliver. Instructions for living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it.